Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight in Somalia, where security continues to be a major concern. Several people are dead after a suicide bomber blew himself up inside the main police training facility in Mogadishu on Thursday. The terrorist group Al-Shabaab is claiming responsibility for the attack. United Nations report taken over a 20-month period in Somalia reveals that violence by Al-Shabaab is continuing to take a heavy toll on the civilian population.
60% of all civilian casualties during that 20-month period that the report covers are attributable to Al-Shabaab. So they are by far the worst when it comes to activities that kill civilians in conflict. And of the incidents attributable to Al-Shabaab, 79% are as a result of the use of IEDs, improvised explosive devices, whether they are vehicle-borne or otherwise.
Al-Shabaab has been active in Somalia trying to overthrow the government and install a strict form of Islam. Now, allegations of sexual assault stuns the Kenya police force. Several dozen women in Kenya say police officers attacked them during this year's election season, and some said they were raped by men in uniform. That's according to a Human Rights Watch report released on Thursday. The sexual attacks, mostly on women, occurred during the election period in August and October. Human Rights Watch says the rapes happened in some of Nairobi's slums and in two opposition strongholds, Kisumu and Bungoma in Western Kenya. The Kenyan police dispute rights groups' allegations that officers used excessive force to quell election-related unrest, in which at least 70 people were killed. Now, for more on the alleged sexual assault by police in Kenya, Audrey Wabwire, East Africa Press Officer for Human Rights Watch, joins me by phone from Nairobi. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, Vincent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, these allegations, I mean, they've been made in the past. First, the biggest challenge is that they are very difficult to prove. How do you proceed?
Well, that's the thing. The women we spoke to and some of the men are facing lots of difficulty right now because they need urgent medical assistance. There's many women who are dealing with fistula silently at home. And we would like the government to quickly commit to providing medical assistance, psychosocial care, and reparations and access to justice to these women. And how can they do this? They can do this by establishing an independent judicial commission of inquiry to examine any unlawful activities of the police while they were responding to protests following the polls in August and in October.
Yeah.
And this commission would investigate the full range of abuses committed by the police and any militias that who are controlled or tolerated by the police, including any allegations of sexual violence. And so this can be done by really showing that the government is committed, and they can do this if they publicly acknowledge that these crimes took place and just having the goodwill to investigate these issues.
Now, Audrey, what precedents do we have here? Remember, way back 2007, 2008, it was established that up to 1,200 women or more were raped. Was there anybody held accountable? Can we use that as a backdrop to what could happen today and tomorrow?
Yes, this is a terrible precedent because when we spoke to many of these women, they said that, look at the women who reported the cases in 2007. No one has been held accountable. So why should I go to the police? Why should I report this? What's different this time? Who will listen to me? And so the government needs to show that it cares about its citizens. It cares about victims of sexual violence, and that it is committing and acknowledging that this is a crime and it's going to be investigated.
Now, this time around, it may not have been as widespread as 2007, but you get the sense that perhaps the police can do this knowing they will get away with it?
Please come again, Vincent.
Do the police officers seem to act this way because they know they'll get away with it anyway?
Well, when someone is not held accountable, of course, it's supposed to have impunity. But we do not want this to happen because the government must show that it cares for Kenyans, and it must show that the police are actually law-abiding and they're sent out to communities to assist to keep the peace and actually not to torment the people.
Well, we hope the government will do something. Shame on those men, though. Audrey, thank you very much. Audrey Wabwire.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Audrey Wabwire is the East Africa press officer for Human Rights Watch. Now, to the southern part of the continent. South Africa's embattled President Jacob Zuma has been slapped with several stinging rebukes by the courts just days before the ruling party meets to select a new party leader. Zuma has faced a string of corruption allegations during his time in office, many of them over leaked emails that suggest his friends, the Gupta family, may have used their influence to secure lucrative state contracts for their companies. On Wednesday, the country's High Court ruled that an inquiry into allegations alleged state influence peddling in Zuma's government should be established, as recommended by the anti-graft watchdog in a report released a year ago. Zuma had challenged the right of the report's author to call for judicial inquiry and the appointment of a judge to head it by the Chief Justice. Zuma says it was his prerogative to set up such an inquiry. One of our viewers, Anita Powell, is following the legal and political drama in South Africa and now joins me by phone from Johannesburg. Anita, good evening.
Hi, Vincent.
Yeah, now, do we see this as being a little more serious than in the past? This is a man of 20 lives, Mr. Zuma.
It would appear so, but this is actually, it looks like we may be finally at the end of the road for Mr. Zuma. This weekend, his party is meeting to hold an elective conference and choose his successor as party leader, which could effectively cut him off at the knees.
Now, Anita, the phone line is not as great today, but nevertheless, what exactly is the party likely to do, given that he's known to have a lot of influence within the party itself?
Vincent, if I knew the answer to that question, I would be doing something much more lucrative than journalism. The short answer is nobody knows what could happen at this elective conference of 5,000 members of the ANC.
Okay, and now that's big. How is the general reaction by the citizens of South Africa, knowing that Musholozi is known to be extremely popular in some quarters?
So, Zuma's popularity has been sinking for at least the last 7 years. It's kind of amazing to a lot of South Africans that he's managed to hang on this long. But within his party, there is an emphasis on discipline. There's an emphasis on unity. So that has held him up so far. But there have been chinks in the armor of his party. Several high-level ANC members have called for him to go. Well,
I suppose we'll just watch and see. Perhaps you follow up with you on Monday after the events of this day, tomorrow, and the weekend. The line is not so great. Anita, thank you very much for joining us today from Johannesburg. That's VOA's Anita Powell reporting live from Johannesburg in South Africa. To West Africa now, citizens of Cameroon's Anglophone region are fleeing to Nigeria as a government crackdown grows. Since October, 7,500 people have fled to Nigeria. That includes 2,300 who fled in a single day on December the 4th. They say they fear government reprisals after raids by separatist militants killed at least 6 soldiers and police officers. Government repression, including ordering thousands of villagers in the Anglophone southwest to leave their homes, has driven support for a once fringe secessionist movement, stoking a lethal cycle of violence. The secessionists now declared an independent state called Ambazonia in October. Cameroonian authorities say the English-speaking separatists pose a security threat that justifies their crackdown. The United Nations Refugee Agency is preparing for up to 40,000 refugees. Now, Turkey hosted an emergency summit of the 57-nation Organization of the Islamic Coordination on Wednesday, delivering a scathing rebuke of U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. The summit has called for the recognition of a Palestinian state. Dorian Jones reports from Istanbul.
22 leaders attended the one-day summit in Istanbul, along with 23 foreign ministers. The gathering came as clashes continue in the wake of the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Summit host Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan used his opening address to criticize both the US and Israel. Pointing to maps, Erdogan accused Israel of seeking to take all Palestinian territory and using its security forces to behave as a terror state. Erdogan also made concrete demands on the international community.
I
invite all countries who protect international law and justice to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of the occupied Palestinian state. We cannot delay further. As Islamic countries, we will never give up on our demand of a sovereign and independent Palestine with Jerusalem as its capital.
But the summit revealed underlying divisions that exist within the region, with heads of state of key nations like Saudi Arabia and Egypt absent from the gathering.
U.S. The perspective, the very important for the Saudi Arabian, the Egyptian. They don't want to be resistance to the U.S. decision. We can say a little bit they are silent when we compare with the Turkey and Jordanian or Iran.
Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas delivered a defiant message, claiming Trump is isolated over his stance on Jerusalem.
With
this, the United States has lost its capability to be a mediator and won't have a role in the political process. We will not accept anymore for it to have a role in the political process. It is biased to Israel. This is our stand, and we wish you to support us in it.
The closing statement declared a commitment to recognize a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Dorian Jones, VOA News, Istanbul.
Well, back in the United States, New York bombing suspect Aqaid Ullah will remain in federal custody as he awaits his trial early next month on terrorist-related charges, including using a weapon of mass destruction and attempting to bomb a public place. Ullah made his first court appearance via closed-circuit television on Wednesday as he recovers from burns and other injuries after he allegedly triggered a bomb that wounded 3 other people. Ullah, a Bangladeshi immigrant, is accused of setting off a pipe bomb strapped to himself in a crowded subway tunnel in New York City on Monday. Investigators say Ullah admitted he wanted to cause mass casualties to avenge U.S. action against Islamic State and because of U.S. policies in the Middle East. Now we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Well, now coming up, the number of people with dementia is expected to triple by year 2050. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
I think I'm more popular than I was on my wedding day.
He's a pretty good dentist, I have to admit that. He gives you a needle and you don't even feel it.
She's talking about Dr. Jalal Khan, a dentist in Sydney, Australia, who brings his services by truck to the bush in southwest Queensland. Andrew Burns says he had a lot of pain before he was able to see Dr. Khan.
People in the bush, they'll put up with it. They'll live with it, they'll put up with it, they'll come up with whatever means they can of trying to fix it themselves. Whereas, that's only going to lead to bigger problems.
I get locals knocking on the door. There's usually a line of at least 2 or 3 people in the morning when we're setting up, and throughout the day the mobile phone for the truck is ringing off the chart.
Still, Dr. Khan says it's not easy to make his mobile dentistry cost-effective, but he does it to bring dental health to remote areas. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madu with a link between gum disease and stomach cancer. Lino.
That's right, Vincent. A new study suggests gum infections may increase people's risk for sores in the digestive tract that can lead to stomach cancer. The small study involved 35 people with so-called precancerous lesions, abnormal cells or sores in the digestive tract where cancer is more likely. Overall, 32% of people with precancerous gastric lesions had the kind of bleeding during dental exams that is a hallmark of periodontal disease, compared with 22% of individuals without precancerous lesions. The researchers say, among other things, periodontal disease may cause inflammation in the mouth and also contribute to inflammation throughout the body. The scientists note precancerous lesions don't always develop into cancer. Periodontal disease is a serious infection in the mouth caused by bacteria in dental plaque. Now, the World Health Organization says as the global population ages, the number of people living with dementia is expected to triple from 50 million to 152 million by 2050. Dementia is an umbrella term for several diseases that are mostly progressive, affecting memory, other cognitive abilities, and behavior. The WHO recently launched the Global Dementia Observatory, a web-based platform to track progress on the provision of services for people with dementia and for those who care for them, both within countries and globally. It will monitor the presence of national policy and plans, risk of reduction measures, and infrastructure for providing care and treatment. Among other things, the plan provides a comprehensive blueprint for action in areas including reducing the risk of dementia, diagnosis, treatment and care, research and innovation as well. To date, the WHO has collected data from 21 countries of all income levels. By the end of 2018, it's expected that 50 countries will be contributing data. And we have heard it before, but new research reconfirms that coffee is a healthy drink. However, some of the other habits associated with drinking coffee are not. VOA's George Putic explains.
Perhaps the best demonstration of coffee's impact worldwide happened recently in Beijing, the capital of tea-drinking China, where the US-based chain Starbucks opened its largest shop, taking up 2,700 square meters and employing more than 400 people. While the shop's popularity is not just for coffee's health benefits, a new study says they are indisputable.
There are some headline benefits, such as a lower risk of dying from any cause, a lower risk of dying from heart disease and stroke, and a lower risk of developing heart disease in the first place. And for those outcomes, the maximum benefit was around 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day.
Analyzing results of 201 previous studies about coffee's impact, researchers at the University of Southampton's Faculty of Medicine found that drinking coffee also lowers the risk of developing diabetes, liver disease, dementia, and even some cancers. The only exception was for pregnant women or those who are prone to bone fractures. But scientists point out the research was only about coffee, not what goes along with it.
It's not about the sugar and the syrups and the biscuits, cakes and pastries, and we'd urge people who are already drinking moderate amounts of coffee, about 3 or 4 cups per day mark, to enjoy it, but try and make it as healthy as possible, because standard health messages still apply to those other things.
The greatest benefit was in fighting liver diseases, so researchers are planning a clinical test of using coffee as a treatment for cirrhosis. But for some coffee lovers, there may be another circumstance that carries additional benefits: drinking coffee with pets around.
Pets are not only good for our health, but they can be good for our wealth, particularly if you have them in a small business environment where customers are going to be drawn in to interact with the dog or come in, and it's a really good icebreaker.
Private coffee shop owners take note. Having a pet in your cafe may benefit your business as well as your customers. George Putic, VOA News.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Linor Moudou. Vincent, are you a coffee drinker? back to you.
I drink some coffee. I love coffee. Thanks a lot, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Madu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Christmas decorations need some serious bling. We'll be right back.
In Somalia, an Islamic extremist suicide bomber disguised as a police officer kills at least 17 and injures 20 at a police academy in Mogadishu.
There was widespread.
Human Rights Watch says Kenyan security forces raped, beat, and assaulted civilians during violence in the recent elections. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 11 militia fighters are jailed for life for raping dozens of girls as young as 18 months old during ceremonies meant to give the men supernatural powers. In Zimbabwe, new President Emerson Mnangagwa says the country must think, sleep, dream, and walk productivity as he addresses his ZANU-PF party's Central Committee.
Could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got some bling. Now that's the advice from Christmas stylists decorating celebrity homes in Hollywood and Beverly Hills this year. Gold-tipped feather wreaths, silver and gold metallics, tiny bright LED lights and glittering sisal trees are some of the top home decor trends for 2017. Color schemes include white with silver, white with gold, and fiery garnet. Stylists are advising their clients to substitute the traditional reds and greens for shiny metals. Well, next up until a few years ago, most of Shenyang Hunters players had never even watched an American football match, let alone try to get the game out for real. But this month, a squad of 45 Hunters players traveled to Shanghai to play in the biggest match on the calendar of China's City Ball Championship, the final against the Shanghai Street Cats. Deemed China's Super Bowl, the City Ball American Football League of China was established in 2015 and only had 12 teams in the first year. Now the league has 30 teams from 28 different cities. American football is less popular than basketball and soccer in China, but fan numbers are growing quickly as young people accustomed to streaming sports on mobile telephones get drawn in. And finally, a New York startup is placing smart shareable dog houses around neighborhoods in Brooklyn with the aim of maximizing the time city dwellers spend with their dogs. Called Dog Parker, the spacious dog house is equipped with 4G LTE modem that allows for temperature control, auto sanitation, and puppy cam, a webcam connected to the company's app where dog owners can keep an eye on their pooch while taking care of their daily errands. Now, the app-driven service costs 30 cents a minute, and that is what is trending today. Now, how many places are there in the U.S. where visitors get to see nature in all its abundance within a single setting? National Parks traveler Micah Meyer thinks Glacier National Park in northern Montana on the border with Canada comes pretty close. He shared highlights of his experiences with VOA's Julie Tabo.
Glacier National Park has everything. Melting glaciers 10,000 years ago left behind majestic mountains, lush valleys, and pristine lakes. With such picture-perfect scenes, it's easy to see why National Parks traveler Micah Meyer has returned.
5 years ago, I stood on this exact same spot, at the end of the dock on Lake McDonald in Glacier National Park. It was one of my first experiences with a National Park Service site, and I was hooked. One of the things I remember from back then was how clear and still the water was. I'm happy to see again that 5 years later, not much has changed.
What has changed over the years is the number of glaciers, which is rapidly shrinking.
There are currently 26 glaciers in Glacier National Park. Without doubt, the glaciers are melting and snowfall is not restoring their size in the way that they have in past years.
Waters from those melting glaciers feed Iceberg Lake, another popular attraction in the park.
It is very cold and very windy, and lots of little icebergs floating back there by the snow.
But despite the cold, the wildflowers were in full bloom.
Walking through this trail with all the bear grass, I feel like I'm in some fairy tale land.
The enchanting landscape provided a perfect setting to view the local wildlife, from deer and moose to marmots and mountain goats. Micah got to explore the park from different perspectives. First, on a tour bus.
It's a massive park. It takes an hour and a half just to cross it. And so it's a guided tour that allows you to focus on looking at the beauty of the park.
And then on horseback for a trek to Cracker Lake, which is also fed by melting glacial waters.
You crest over this hill on the horses, and you're in a meadow surrounded by trees and flowers. And there's these large gray mountains in the background, and it just pops like nothing else.
The bright blue of Cracker Lake behind me is caused by the glacier rubbing up against rock and the silt depositing in the water.
Micah got to experience those glacial waters up close during a rafting tour on the Middle Fork River.
All forward!
And he got a bird's eye view of the park from the top of a ski lift. Micah hopes to return to the park one day, even if the glaciers are gone.
Even if the glaciers don't still exist because they've melted away, it can still be Glacier National Park because that's what created this amazing landscape.
Julie Tabo, VOA News.
Fabulous. Now that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Today's episode won't cost you anything.
Freebie.
Let's see what this one is about.
Anna, I love my job.
Oh yeah? Why is that?
I get so many freebies from the bands I write about. CDs, t-shirts, water bottles, even tickets to see them perform.
Wow. The only freebie I ever got from my